was yesterday, so that was 70 minutes of riveting, spine-tingling, riveting entertainment. So tonight, thank you for joining us at Ideas at Work and Beyond. We've got an incredible show tonight. Rob Simmons, as we speak, is coming here by way of sled dog. He's actually mushing across the great tundra of the Nutmeg State, and he's making his way here, and he'll be joining us for part of the show. So you can call in. By the way, the phone number to call in here is 792-4101. 792-4101. Now, unless you've been living in a cave, or unless you're somehow in some sort of a religious community on the top of a mountain chanting, you'll know that there has been an incredible upheaval in the politics of our country. On this very set, my co-host, who we'll get to in a minute, Al Robinson and I lauded the election of Barack Obama. I myself voted for John McCain. And I voted for Mitt Romney, who, by the way, was looking pretty doggone good in that Scott Brown victory celebration last Tuesday night.
I can't wait to
But I digress. What we saw was the people. I couldn't have put it any better than when, during that debate, the Gergen, who of course was in the tank for the Democrat, said, Mr. Brown, what gives you the right to take Ted Kennedy's seat? And Scott Brown turned on the Democrat left-wing sycophants that was put up as some sort of an honest broker in this debate, and he said, it's not Senator Kennedy's seat. It's not the Democrat seat. This is the people's seat. And by golly, he was right, and he was swept into victory based almost exclusively on the assurance. Every stop he made, he said, I will be the 41st vote in the United States Senate against Obamacare, against socializing our health care. And the people came out in droves. And in Massachusetts, the bluest of blue states, they elected a Republican, Scott Brown. Yes, his truck had over 200,000 miles on it. And the elitists, and it's interesting, because sometimes when you think of the Democratic Party, you say, hey, those are the party of the blue-collar guys. But you know what it's turning out? It's turning out that they're the elitist party that's out of touch. And no more was it more an example than when Barack Obama comes up to Massachusetts and says, he starts hacking on the guy's truck. Says anybody can buy a truck. Well, in today's economy, not everyone can buy a truck. So we have a lot of interesting things. Change is in the air. But you know, there's a cautionary tale for Republicans. Because the fact of the matter is, the folks out there don't love Republicans all that much. They don't love Democrats all that much. They just want to see this economy improve. They want to see us get back on our feet as a nation, and they want to be proud to be Americans once again. And that's who will get elected in 2010. It's the party or the individual that can get this economy going again. You know, I did some research. I was on a little break, and I read a book about written by a former governor of a state just north of here.
I can't believe you read that thing.
I read the book. It's a good book. It's a bestseller. I read all the bestsellers.
Third grader can read that thing.
But they had one thing that jumped out at me was a quote from Margaret Thatcher, and I want to just talk briefly about the economy. Listen to what Margaret Thatcher had to say. Talking about free market capitalism. There was no alternative to capitalism because it's a system that ensures the most prosperity for the most people. Thatcher acknowledged that capitalism is not controllable, even predictable, but neither is human nature. Now listen to this quote from Margaret Thatcher, the Iron Woman that turned around, good friend of Ronald Reagan's, turned around the British economy back in the 80s when Reagan was doing his thing over here. Listen to what she says in light of what we're going through right now with this downturn in the economy. She said, since its inception, capitalism has known slumps and recessions, bubbles and froth. No one has yet disinvested the business cycle, and probably no one will. What are called the gales of creative destruction still roar mightily from time to time To lament these things is ultimately to lament the bracing blast of freedom itself. Margaret Thatcher, I think, gives us a little bit of perspective about what we're going through right now with this recession. I went back and did a little research. It turns out that since in this last century, if you go back 100 years, the country has experienced 22 different recessions, including the Great Recession in the 1930s. Every time it was a result. It was fascinating to read some of the causes of these recessions. Speculation, tightening credit, a product of urban development, bursts of the Civil War speculative bubble, tightening credit by the banks, the height of, and then in one case it turned to a U.S. populist movement. It goes on and on. The Roaring Twenties even experienced a certain amount of recession. Extensive new tariff and other factors contributed to an extremely deep depression. That was the Great Depression, when the government became too involved. Tight fiscal policies helped cause the recession in 1937. And it goes on and on and on when you look back and you see all these. Apparently in the history of our country, the country has experienced 47 different recessions going back to 1790 when they first started recording them. These recessions are hurtful. It's tough. It's difficult. But the difference between Barack Obama and the approach that the Democrats are taking and what we saw with Ronald Reagan and his approach back in the beginning of the 1980s is Reagan said, we're going to unleash the private sector. We're going to get government off people's backs. We're not going to expand the role of government, and if anything, we're going to constrict it. Who was it? That great capitalist, Bill Clinton, that said the role or the age of big government is dead. But likewise, Reagan said the same thing. John F. Kennedy, and it was interesting to see how Scott Brown used the image and the speech of John F. Kennedy, the patriarch of the Kennedy clan. John F. Kennedy I'm talking about. Not big government, socialized medicine, Ted Kennedy. I'm talking about John Kennedy. And in his TV ads, he gave a speech talking about the importance of cutting taxes, getting government off the back of the peoples, and unleashing the private sector. Ronald Reagan put it best when he said of government in that time, in that case it was the Jimmy Carter administration, he said if government sees something move, they tax it. If it keeps moving, they regulate it. And if it stops moving, think Chrysler, AIG, he said they subsidize it. That's what we've seen in the last year in the Obama administration. Sometimes there are sea changes in the economic statistics that you see come across. One of which I found interesting was that government is the largest unionized employer in America now as opposed to private corporations. It's government, state government, federal government that has the most union workers, not the private sector anymore. Government has eclipsed the private sector in unionized work. And it's interesting to me, and Barack Obama in his State of the Union address touted how, really it was after a result of a Freedom of Information Act request by, I believe it was Fox News, he said these are the people that have come and visited the White House. Well, of the people that they made public, the one that visited the most was someone named Andrew Stern, who heads up the Service Employees International Union. He had 22 visits to the White House. When they were putting together this health insurance plan, the socialized medicine plan, those unions were negotiated with and got a sweetheart deal. Because you see, some of these unions had these wonderful, what they call Cadillac health insurance plans, and part of Barack Obama's plan, if it hadn't been derailed by the people, would have been to tax these Cadillac plans. Well, guess what? His friends in the union, those that have visited the White House 22 times, they weren't having it. So he cut a special deal for the unions. It's interesting also to see that the stimulus money that went to Chrysler, That didn't go to Chrysler to try and build new cars. That went to Chrysler to pay off the unions and some of their pension funds and things of that nature. So through it all, we see that Barack Obama is not turning to the private sector, not allowing tax cuts, not allowing incentives to small business to hire people, but he's turning to shovel-ready jobs in a stimulus package. He's turning to big government. I mean, in his defense, I guess that's all he's ever known. He's never had to meet a payroll. He's never had to go provide a service or build a product and try to sell it on the open market. All he's known is big government. And so instinctively, the entire Democratic Party is saying, hey, let's just put money into big government programs, shovel-ready projects, which I'm not seeing a lot of. And when the unemployment is going from 8 to 10%, it doesn't seem to be working. What we need to do is we need to see a pivot back to the private sector. Allow this great capitalist engine that built this country, lift the fetters off it and allow it to produce. Allow it to produce good, high-paying jobs. Allow it to begin to grow. Don't tax it, don't regulate it, and don't provide all this uncertainty and anti-business attitude that does nothing but hold down growth. Don't go after the big banks. For goodness sakes, look at the money. In the state of Connecticut, when you see how much money comes from just the town of Greenwich, just the town of Greenwich, I think, pays 17% of the state's revenue that comes in. 17% from one town. There's 169 towns in the state of Connecticut. And what is that money? That's Wall Street money. That's money from some of these big banks. They do well. We want the banks to be prosperous. We want the banks to grow. We want the banks to give away money. We don't want to browbeat the banks. We don't want to assume the worst. We want them to flourish. If they flourish, we'll flourish. I think Abraham Lincoln said it best, and I'll wrap up here because I guess we have a show. But he says, "You cannot help the poor by destroying the rich. You cannot strengthen the weak by weakening the strong. You cannot bring about prosperity by discouraging thrift. You cannot lift up the wage earner by pulling down the wage payer. You cannot further the brotherhood of man by inciting class hatred. You cannot build character and courage by taking away people's initiative and independence. You cannot help people permanently by doing for them what they should and could do for themselves." That was Abraham Lincoln. Our current president, Barack Obama, who in a lot of ways I have a lot of respect for, sort of patterned his political career after Abraham Lincoln. Apparently in the State House, he sat at the same desk in the State House in Springfield, Illinois, as Abraham Lincoln. Well, I would say during this tough economic time, of which there have been 22 in the past 100 years, 47 since 1790, we will work our way out of it like we always had. We'll work our way out of it quicker and stronger if we turn to the private sector, not to the public sector. That is what I think the people are saying. That is what I think the people in Massachusetts were saying, and I agree with that voice of the people. Okay, enough. Is there any more oxygen left in this room, or have I just absorbed the whole thing? Can we get Al Robinson? He's actually fallen asleep over here. Al, we're on TV. We're on TV. Sorry, I've absorbed all the oxygen.
Are you done?
Al, I'm done, but in a way, in a sense, I'm just getting warmed up. It's so good to see you.
Good to see you too.
I'm glad you made it out on this frigid, cold day.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a record. It's officially 9:15. That's the longest monologue yet since he's been on this show. Ivan would be happy. And by the way, Ivan Elson's doing a very good. He's doing okay. His family's okay in Haiti. I'm sure if he was here, he would explain about the situation. I'm sure in time he'll come on the show or do a telephone interview and tell us about the experiences he went through. But it was pretty traumatic for the guy. Yeah,
it was actually extremely touching. I got in touch with him when I heard about the earthquake, and for the first, I think, 2.5, maybe 3 days, he had not heard from his sister.
Yeah.
And he didn't know where they were, and I told him we prayed for him at our church, and I actually prayed the voicemail back. You could tell he was very concerned about it, and I was so excited to get the text he sent the text, I think I forwarded it to you, saying, my sister's found and she's okay, she just called.
Yeah, and it's amazing that she was able to get a phone.
Yeah.
There, it's just complete devastation, and my heart goes out to anybody who has family members or friends in Haiti right now. It's a terrible situation, and a lot should be learned from this, especially when you build buildings, how to properly build them, how not to properly build them. Because I think that has a lot to do with the amount of destruction that happened there. Yeah,
I saw the one statistic that I guess it was like a 0.7 hurricane, or hurricane, I'm sorry, a 0.7 earthquake. Am I saying that?
Yeah, yeah.
A 0.7 or 7.0 earthquake, and that was the exact same earthquake as far as the power of it that happened in San Francisco. Remember during the World Series?
Yeah, 89.
89. So in 1989, they had a 7.0 hurricane that rocked San Francisco, an urban setting. Total death toll, 63 people.
Right.
Now, this is a densely populated urban setting. If you'll recall, if you were watching the World Series at that time, they stopped the game, and it was very scary, and I think, what was it, one of the bridges collapsed?
Yeah, I might be wrong. I think it's the bridge that goes from Oakland over to San Francisco.
Right, so it was pancaked, and I think that's where a lot of the deaths were. But again, there was only 63 fatalities. I mean, it was terrible destruction. Same power earthquake in Haiti with lax construction, completely poverty-stricken country, and you see what happened.
Yeah, it's sandcastles, basically. That's all these buildings were.
A little bit. The similar thing happened when you think back a year or two ago in China when they had that horrific earthquake. Right. Unfortunately, it was on a school day, and many of the students were in school, and in China they only allow you to have one child. I mean, some of the interviews that they did with the parents there was just heartbreaking. Same thing, though. Lax construction, these buildings just collapsed, and the death toll just skyrocketed.
You know, in Haiti, you're dealing with one of the poorest countries in the Western Hemisphere. I think the last thing these people are thinking about is constructing things sturdy that can withstand an earthquake, because, of course, that costs a lot of money. But again, I think we as a country, we as a world, should go in there and help these people out. I mean, this is a situation of magnitude we can't even think of. I mean, 1 minute you're here, next thing you know, your entire family's gone. Yeah. You know, we can't allow something like that to happen again.
Yeah. It's I mean, and this is going to be as far as the reconstruction of New Orleans. That was a walk in the park compared to what they're talking about down in Haiti.
Yeah, I mean, at least the building stayed up in New Orleans. I mean, everything is just gone in Haiti. There's nothing left. Yeah. So it's a big difference.
We should, you know, do our part. You know, you send some money. I know there's a group from our church that thinking about going down there. They already, you know, have raised quite a bit of money, but this is going to be something that's going to take years. This is, I mean, the recovery, the rescue, that's gone forth now. Now comes the development. Now comes, in a lot of ways, the hard part.
Right.
You know, just getting all the logistics taken care of. Well, anyways, I went on and on about what happened up in Massachusetts.
I can't believe you guys are just you're too much. Well, a couple of things about Massachusetts. Let me be real brief. I'll be brief about this because it won't take much for me to dissect that nonsense that you just spewed for 15 minutes. Okay. The thing about Scott Brown and his victory, let's go back a month ago. Let's go back to December. Okay. His Democratic
was ahead by 30 points.
30 points.
Okay.
Now, look, I wish Congressman Simmons was here right now, or any politician who's been involved in politics, or any political advisor, or anything like that. When you lose that type of an advantage within 4 weeks, to 5 weeks, look, you got to put it on the candidate. You got to put it on the campaign. That was just a screw up of major proportions. And when you have, let's say, for instance, she's going around saying, "Well, what should I do? Just shake hands out there in Wrigley Field or Fenway Park? Or,
Wrigley Field.
Sorry. You know, it's just real dumb.
These Democrats are out of touch.
She's completely out of touch.
Wrigley Field in Boston. No wonder you guys blew.
I'm a Mets fan.
Okay.
I don't care about Boston. I'm sorry, but. You got that type of nonsense going on. She takes a vacation for weeks. And she showed that she was completely out of touch with the situation.
All right.
And that means a lot. And by the way, the guy didn't run at all saying he was a Republican. I mean, you couldn't find something on his campaign piece saying Republican anywhere. So I mean, if you want to take,
if you want to take, down to she was a weak candidate. We can't extrapolate.
You can't lose.
Anything
No,
else.
you could take from it. You could take some stuff from it, but you should not glee. You should not glee from this. Again, you can't lose 20 points in 4 weeks and say that, oh yeah, it was Scott Brown.
Just a bad candidate. If she would have only stood outside Fenway Park and shaked a few hands, everything would have been right. The Democrats would have been in control. And the same thing happened in New Jersey and Virginia. I think they had weak candidates too.
New York 23.
Corzine wasn't incumbent.
New York 23. Okay. We talked about Corzine, all right? I mean, nobody liked Corzine, period. Okay, Democrats didn't like that guy. Let's be real about this. But again, look, if you want to glee from this, fine. A lot of people, a lot of big Republican insiders are not gleeing from this. They're saying, look, let's just take from this what it is, because like you said earlier, it isn't like the people who are independents, that's the people who won this election, don't really like Republicans either. There's plenty of polls out there.
That's true.
And by the way, the whole health care thing, it's funny that Mr. Brown goes around saying, oh, I'm going to be that 41st vote, when he, as a state senator, voted for a health care program up in Massachusetts, which is 1,000,000 times more hardcore in terms of liberal, as the health care system that the government is trying to...
Wasn't that Mitt Romney's health care?
Mitt Romney's health care. It's interesting, huh?
It really is.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep track of all this. Who's up first? What's in a second?
Yeah,
well, speaking of powerful members of a political party in here, we just got word that Rob Simmons is in the building, much like Elvis. You know, he's in the building. We're going to take a quick break, and then amateur hour is over, because the man who's been there, he knows where the snakes are buried.
Oh boy!
Will set us straight, and also see how we're going to have a similar pompous Attorney General of a liberal northeastern state is about to get his clock cleaned by another Republican. So we'll see how that works. Yeah. Don't go away. We'll be right back with Congressman, CIA, Vietnam veteran, and soon-to-be U.S. Senator Rob Simmons. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Hi, welcome to Community Access Channel 23. Let's go on inside and see what's going on.
Dream big.
Hey, this is Big T here, telling you to dream big.
Hey, at Channel 23, you can dream big and direct your own show.
Dream big! We want you to all dream big!
We
dream big!
Cable Access, Channel 23, dream big.
Call us today at 203-792-1265 and find out how you can dream big at Channel 23.
We're absolutely thrilled to have former Congressman Rob Simmons. When you look into this guy's resume, it is pretty impressive. He fought for our freedom in Vietnam. He was a CIA agent, a veritable James Bond, and also served in Congress. He knows this state. He's walked and marched in more Memorial Day parades than you can imagine. This is Rob Simmons, and we're delighted to have him here. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Marty, for
really appreciate it.
Al, good to see you again.
And also, if you want to call in, if you have a question for the Congressman, they'll put the phone number on there, but it's 792-4101. We have a live one right here. Call in and ask your questions. How's the campaign trail?
Couldn't be better. You know, it's like Massachusetts all over again.
Okay.
I mean, look, I heard you guys talking about Massachusetts. And,
mostly him.
And mostly him. But, you know, the real key to me about Massachusetts was that it's a state that has traditionally been a blue state, but it has a very substantial number of unaffiliated voters who traditionally have voted for, you know, Ted Kennedy and John Kerry, and with the exception of Mitt Romney and I guess Jane Swift, pretty much Democrat governors as well. But I would argue that people over the last year, citizens, have gotten upset that somehow their voice isn't being heard. People aren't listening carefully to what they have to say about government spending, about deficits, about any of a variety of issues. And you know, absent an icon like Ted Kennedy, and you have to admit he was quite an icon up there in Massachusetts, it became an open race. And those unaffiliated voters shifted to somebody that they thought was going to be an agent of change in Washington, D.C. Slow this train down. Listen to what the people are saying. Not so fast. You know, building consensus for major change is not easy to do, and it takes time. And I think that was reflected in Massachusetts, and I believe the same attitudes are prevalent here in Connecticut. You've got the Tea Parties, you got the town hall meetings. Lord knows that's probably why Senator Dodd is not running for re-election, because he feels this mood of distress and anxiety, and in his case, opposition.
Let me ask you something. Now, be honest. Don't be honest. Not that you haven't been so far.
What do you mean, be honest?
Be honest.
What's this honesty?
I don't know. It's a Republican stuff.
I'm just kidding with you now. Just kidding.
But you're driving around. You're out there campaigning. You're doing a great job.
I'm doing my best.
You learn that Senator Dodd is throwing in the towel.
Yes.
He saw the ticker on Fox News that you were, you know, ahead.
Right.
He saw the writing on the wall. He said people have had enough. I got too much corruption scandals and everything else. He drops out. Blumenthal's in. What's your emotional state at that point?
Well, my emotional state was to go to my bookshelf and pull out a brochure put out by the Competitive Enterprise Institute, which is an organization which judges the nation's attorneys general, and they list the top 10 worst state attorneys general. That is from the standpoint of jobs, job creation, and business. And lo and behold, I see Elliot Spitzer in here from New York, but you know, he's only ranked third worst.
He gets the bronze medal.
He gets the bronze
for worstness in attorney general.
Yeah, and the silver medal goes to the Attorney General from California, but who gets the gold?
I don't know.
This is, you're going to have to guess.
Al, any thoughts on who would get the gold?
In the category maybe it's Blumenthal?
Al is so smart.
Where's my prize?
He's so smart. He gets the gold medal. Now, you know, look, I was business advocate of the state of Connecticut for 22 months. I visited 400 businesses, one a day, every day, 5 days a week, 52 weeks of the year. And I got a very distinct sensation that here in the state of Connecticut, businessmen and women feel that the state is not business friendly. It's not business friendly because some of the activities of the legislature. It's not business friendly because of the high taxes, but it's also not business friendly because of the activities of our Attorney General. And I think that Attorney General Blumenthal is going to have to confront this and deal with this in this campaign.
All right. Well, it's at some level, though, what I was getting at with my question is,
go ahead.
Wouldn't you have preferred to have run against Dodd? I mean, he seemed like he was on the ropes, and now you got this new guy. I mean, new, and he's been around forever. But it's you got to attack it a different way.
First of all, as a candidate, you run for the office. You run for your party's nomination. If there's a primary, you run in a primary. If there's a general, you run for the office. You can't predict who it's going to be. I knew that when I began this race against Senator Dodd, it was going to be an uphill battle. And it was. He continues to be charismatic. He continues to be articulate. He continues to be popular among his party base. And yes, he made some mistakes with regard to his mortgage, and yes, I think he made some mistakes with regard to his move to Iowa. But I think the biggest problem that he had really was carrying the water of Harry Reid and Nancy Pelosi and policies that were coming out of Washington, D.C. that were just damn unpopular. And quite frankly, Attorney General Blumenthal is going to have to take some positions on some issues for a change, because you see, he hasn't come out for or against TARP. He hasn't come out for or against the stimulus package. He hasn't come out for or against whether Khalid Sheikh Mohammed should come to New York City for a trial. He hasn't come out for an awful lot of things, and he's going to have to start addressing the issues of this campaign. As Attorney General, he could pick and choose his issues. He could read the paper in the morning and go sue somebody in the afternoon. That's not the way it works when you're running for Congress, whether it's the House or the Senate. It's a much harder lift because you have to make a decision, and you have to say, I am for or against something. I would have voted for or against something, and so far he hasn't done that.
Al, you had some questions.
Well, before we even talk about Richard Blumenthal, you got to talk about your competition that you have right now, because you are in a situation where most likely you'll be having a primary. You have yourself, you have Linda McMahon, and you have Peter Schiff.
Yes.
I don't think Peter Schiff is going to be that much of a problem for you, but Linda McMahon with her $30 to $50 million will be. So I want to talk a little more about, not necessarily Mr. Blumenthal at this time, but more about Linda McMahon, why people should, why do you feel that you can be a better candidate, a better person to run against Mr. Simmons, I'm sorry, against Mr. Blumenthal in general, where you have Linda McMahon who has $30 to $50 million to spend?
Well, you know, first of all, with great respect for her business capability, she and her husband have made a lot of money, and I appreciate that. Money does not necessarily translate into success when it comes to politics. You know, the history of politics here in the state of Connecticut is filled with cases of people with an awful lot of money who have gotten into politics but not successfully. Most recently, Ned Lamont, for example, who ran against Joe Lieberman, spent, I believe, $16 million of his own money, and Joe walked away in that race, really. Jack Orchuli ran against Senator Dodd 6 years ago. Jack, for all the money he spent, never even got into the race, as far as I can tell. 12 years ago, Brooks Johnson, a very attractive guy from Greenwich, won the primary against Chris Burnham.
Who just come back from the Persian Gulf.
Who had just come back from the Persian Gulf. He'd been the treasurer of the state of Connecticut. He'd been in the Connecticut General Assembly. But then when Brooks Johnson went up against Chris Dodd, people looked into his business practices and found enough in there to defeat him handily. Corzine in New Jersey, an incumbent, spent, I'm told, $70 to $100 million and was defeated. The fact of the matter is, our democracy is based on the people. The people are sovereign. The Constitution says it's about we the people. The seat belongs to the people. It's not Dodd's seat. It's not Kennedy's seat. It's the people of Connecticut's seat. It's not a Democrat seat. It's not a Republican seat. It belongs to the people. And they make a choice. And you know, the good news is that more than ever, the people in the state of Connecticut are concerned about what's going on. They're concerned about, you know, unemployment, which is now reaching 10%. They're concerned about deficits here at home and in Washington. They're concerned about foreclosures. I'm told almost 40,000 families in Connecticut are faced with foreclosure. So they're concerned about these issues, and I think that the decision is for them to make, and they will not necessarily be swayed by all kinds of glossy advertisements. I think they're smart. My experience in the 10 races that I've run is that the Connecticut voter is smart, well-educated, and makes careful choices, and that's what I'm betting on. I'm betting on the people.
Well, okay. Well, today, Ted Mann in the New London Day, good reporter, came out with an article in which Linda McMahon was forced, because of her campaign statement was incomplete. She had to do an amendment to show where her expenditures went to. Now, this is a no-name individual. She spent, according to her report, $1.1 million just on advertising and getting her name out there. This is somebody who had actually no idea in terms of politics, and because she dumped a lot of money into this and just to get her name out there, she's not that far behind you in poll numbers. So, I mean, you would admit that money is a factor when it comes to campaigns.
In a campaign, you need to raise enough money to buy the media, to convey the message. In every race that I've ever run, I've always been able to generate enough revenue to buy the media to convey the message. I ran against a 20-year incumbent, Sam Gageson, back in 2000, and he outspent me 2 or 3 to 1. I forget the exact numbers, but we had enough to buy the media, and we won that race. And right now, we will be filing numbers that will show that this past year, 2009, we raised more money in our campaign than any other Republican challenger in the history of the state. Is that going to be $20 or $30 million? No. Is that going to be enough to buy the media that we need? Yes. Have we spent a nickel of it on media? No. We don't have to, because I have a reputation in the state of Connecticut and a career. I'm a career military officer with 37 years of service. I spent 10 years in the CIA. I received numerous awards and decorations for my intelligence activities as well as for my military activities. I began my political career like my military career, at the bottom, at a municipal level, running for selectmen, and then Board of Police Commissioners, and then Republican Town Committee, and then State Representative, and then Member of Congress. And over those years, yes, I've spent $10 or $12 million of advertising presenting myself to the people, so they have a sense of who I am. The other candidates, the Republican candidates, have never run for anything. They've never won anything. So, to get back to your question, if the seat is for sale, if the seat is like Ben Nelson's vote, if the seat is like Mary Landrieu's vote, that is for sale for $50 million, $40 million, $30 million, if the people's seat is for sale, then it can be bought. But if it's not for sale, if it's something where the people will be involved in making a discrete decision, then somebody like myself, who is not in a position to buy the seat, will seek my party's endorsement and seek the people's support as we go forward.
Okay, I think what we saw in Boston, among other things, is there's a lot of anger. There's a popularism in the air. Do you think that your career in Washington works against you in that environment, or works for you in that environment?
It probably depends on who you talk to. I think basically it works for me, because my career in Washington was a career that involved the military, which wasn't just in Washington, it was in Vietnam, it was in Georgia, it was around the country and around the world. My career in the CIA, I mean, the CIA is located in Washington, but I was engaged in espionage, undercover, overseas.
Right.
I first went to Washington politically when I went to work for Barry Goldwater as his chief of staff and Senator John Chafee. So I've served in the U.S. Senate as a member of the staff. So I know how the Senate works.
Okay.
I know the rules of procedure and so on and so forth. I think that's a plus. I spent 6 years in the Congress. I think that's a plus. It's not as if I was in there for 25, 30, or 35 years, the way Senator Dodd was, or in fact Congressman Gageson.
Caller, are you there? Caller, are you there? Try back on 438-2003. Okay, so you don't see that as a net negative.
Well, let me ask you this: if you're going in to have some brain surgery, do you want the doctor to say, "This is my first one. I'm fresh. I'm a fresh face, and I'm going to do some brain surgery"? If you're getting on an airplane and the pilot says, "My first flight,"
oh, I'm not getting on that.
You're not getting on the plane.
No, I'll walk.
So I think you want somebody who has enough experience to get the job done,
right,
but who is not a creature of the system.
Well, let's go back on. You speak about experience in your time in Washington. One of the things that the McMahon camp is saying that,
okay, you ready to go?
You're a career politician and the people are looking for an outsider, and she brings up a lot of your record in terms of, like, you supported. Well, she's quoting you saying that you supported cap and trade issues. You voted against partial birth abortions. You spending bills. You spent a lot of money. You did a lot in terms of, like, trying to bring bacon back to your second congressional district. So you're saying that your record on some of these issues won't hurt you, but it seems like some of the stance you took in your political career as a congressman will go against the right wing of the Republican Party.
Well, I consider myself a Connecticut Republican. I'm running for the Republican nomination. Whether it's the left wing, the right wing, or the middle of the party, I'll let the individual members of the party figure that out. I have a record. My record is my record. Some of the votes I took seemed like a good idea at the time, don't seem like a good idea today. But the real question that I would put before the electorate is, I'm looking forward. You know, when I lost my last race by 83 votes, I didn't look back. I looked forward. I became the business advocate for the state of Connecticut. I traveled the state and got an education on what it takes to bring our economy back, and those are the issues and those are the values that I want to take forward.
Caller, you're on the air.
Colonel, how are you tonight?
I'm doing good.
Hey, I have a question, and it's theoretical. If for some reason you don't get the nod at the Republican convention, would you consider running as an independent? And I will hang up and listen to your answer off the air. God bless you, sir.
Thank you, and God bless you as well. I have said that I am, you know, running as hard as I can to seek my party's nomination at the convention. At this point, I'm ahead in delegate count, and we will continue to work on that delegate count. I've also said that if I don't receive my party's nomination, I will, you know, salute the flag and say good luck to whoever gets the nomination and wish them all the best. I will not run as an independent or in some other capacity, Green Party, you name it.
Okay.
That I have been a team player in the Republican Party since 1985. I have been successful on getting my party's nomination to reach out to unaffiliated and even Democrats like my mother, and get their support to do the job.
Okay, now are you positioning yourself, is that potentially what Linda McMahon is thinking of doing?
Well, you'll have to ask her. She has not committed, in my understanding, she is not committed not to do a primary. I think primaries are divisive, and I will say that if my party knows me pretty well. If my party does not choose me to carry the banner forward, then I will concede and let her go.
See, because that to me would be in all this just from a purely Republican point of view, in all this Tea Party movement, and hey, let's start a new independent party and things like that. I think first of all, let's kind of clean house on the Republican side, or if there's problems within, repeated politicians on the Republican side, and there needs to be a little house cleaning. Let's take care of our own house, but don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, because when you start dividing up the vote,
you're finished.
Think Ross Perot. I mean, that was always my greatest thing, little trivia thing. Who received more votes for president, Michael Dukakis or Bill Clinton? And the story is Michael Dukakis did, but there was this little jug-eared guy from, nothing against guys with jug ears, but there's a guy down in Texas who kind of split some of those votes and took some away. So let's keep it together. That's not to say, hey, Republican no matter what. I think there have to be some certain things, limit the role of government, focus on the private sector, get this economy moving again. But as long as we agreed on most of that, we should move together as Republicans.
Well, and I agree with that. I've been to several of the Tea Parties. I respect the people that are expressing their First Amendment rights at the Tea Parties, and these are folks. These are people that have,
the man to your right over here is downgrade the Tea Party. It's a bunch of nuts. They call them tea baggers. I don't even know what that means, but it has a negative connotation. I don't even know. But he's going, you should have seen them. They're a bunch of racists. I remember the whole thing.
Not true. Did you see some of the imagery I brought?
That is true. Some of that imagery was horrendous.
You can pick
the 9/11 rally, Tea Party movement in Bridgeport.
In Bridgeport.
Well, you're having a partisan event on 9/11.
Okay, but at this point, in light of New Jersey, in light of Virginia, in light of Massachusetts, where there was a Tea Party element, can you give a little bit of props? Just give me a taste of some props for the Tea Party guys.
In terms of the New York 23rd Congressional District, which because of the Tea Party movement, they pushed out a moderate Republican for somebody further to the right, to the point that moderate Republican decided to continue to run to the general and endorse the Democrat. That's the problem with the Tea Party movement and stuff like that.
Nailed it.
Again, you talk about watching your house. You better watch yourselves, because these Tea Party people don't like a lot of Republicans either. They don't like incumbents. They don't like the establishment. That is a wild card that you have to get under control. Like you said before, take care of your own house first before trying to move forward.
When you look at the First Amendment, it says the right of the people to speak, to assemble, and to petition the government for redress of grievances. All of this is a constitutional right, and as long as it's being done in a peaceful way, I think that that's healthy for our democracy. That doesn't mean that those folks are going to agree with me or agree with you or agree with you or agree with Dick Blumenthal on many of these issues. But what it does mean is that at last citizens are taking some interest in their government. And I have been in politics here in Connecticut where you couldn't get anybody off of the couch out in front of the TV because of apathy. And so, you know, there was excitement during the presidential a year or so ago, in 2008, a lot of excitement, and I think the excitement continues. And that is potentially a good thing.
Yeah, and I think it's also obviously a outgrowth of the downturn in the economy.
Yes.
I think people don't like the way they see things going. I think they don't like the remedies that are being presented by the current administration. And I think they're mad as hell and they're not taking it anymore, and they're literally taking it to the streets and, you know, with pitchforks in their hand. Yeah, and that's what you're seeing. This is democracy.
They don't have pitchforks. I haven't seen any pitchforks.
I've seen a couple of them with guns, which is even more disturbing.
I haven't seen that. And no Tea Party that I've been to in Connecticut have I seen guns or pitchforks. What I have seen is citizens who are upset. And they're upset maybe because their IRA and their savings have collapsed. Maybe because they're confronted with a mortgage foreclosure, which is true of 40,000 families here in the state of Connecticut. Maybe they feel that their elected officials aren't responding to them when they email or write letters or go to town halls.
We have someone on the phone that could shed some light on this. Sir, you're on the air.
Yes, the Obama girl is on national TV right now bailing out on Obama, saying he was a mistake, that he lied. He lied about being transparent, about the earmarks. It's great. I'm loving it.
So you're talking about a young lady that sang a song to Barack Obama that was a phenom on YouTube, and she's turning her back on Obama as well?
She's on national TV right now, trashing Obama as being untruthful and dishonest. You have to see it. I don't want to say what station, but you'll see it later on YouTube.
Wow. Thanks for the update. I appreciate that.
Great. This whole, even, hey Marty, one other thing.
Yes.
Even the Priuses and Lexuses in Reading have all their Obama stickers peeled off.
Ouch. Well, at least the Democrat carried Barney Frank's district in Massachusetts. At least they held that. Oh no, wait. No, I'm staying corrected. Barney Frank's district also went to
Senator Brown.
That's true. Yeah. Thank you.
We got a band called from Bethel.
Bethel's got it going on. There's a good example of Republicans splitting their vote.
Exactly.
You know, and once again, so I listen as a Republican, and what I would like to think is best for the country. I think that commitment to saying that you're not going to run as an independent, that you allow the politics to run forward. It's interesting. I was with Chris Healy, and Chris Healy's the chairman of the Republican Party in Connecticut, and we were getting ready to play some golf, and he said he was very concerned about this Senate race and the primary, and how we're going to not have this primary really split up the Republican Party in Connecticut. And it's a concern, but if people would take the approach that you're taking, I think it would work out better.
Well, I've made that commitment. It would be nice if Peter Schiff and Mrs. McMahon would also make the same commitment. Yeah. Like I said, I'm a team player. I've pursued my political career, such as it is, from the grassroots up, one step at a time. I didn't come in at the top with a big checkbook and say, I want to be a senator. Yeah. I felt that public service is a calling. Yeah. I have sought opportunities to be of service. That's what my family taught me to do, to give back to the community, whether it's sitting on the police commission or heading up the community center or working with the homeless in New London. This is what I've done over the years And I feel that it's a blessing to find myself in a position where I could actually run for the U.S. Senate and be competitive and do a good job. And I think I could.
No, I mean, you talk about the Tea Party movement and everything else, and you kind of poo-poo it, and you don't think they have, but I'm telling you, Senator Dodd is not running for re-election to a large degree the activities of some of these organizations in the state of Connecticut.
Look, I understand. You're a member of the Ridgefield Republican Town Committee. You got to sell it, so that's fine. I'm not with a town committee or anything like that. You are, so you sell it well. Trust me. But I just want to get back onto something real quick because I've been watching your race. I've been watching McMahon's race. It's been really interesting because my emails are getting flooded with your stuff and Linda's stuff, and it's just. The tone of both your campaigns right now, do you think it's going in a bad direction? Because it's getting kind of ugly out there. Some real nasty stuff being said back and forth right now.
Well,
and do you think it's productive for? Do you think you're going to get into a situation where you might be turning off potential voters?
Well, you always in any campaign there's that risk, and that risk occurs for different reasons. You can say something or do something that somebody doesn't like. You can take a position on an issue that somebody doesn't like. I try, in my words and in my speech, to be positive, to be forward-looking, to look to the future. Next week, I will be talking a lot about small business and what we need to do to strengthen a small business here in the United States, because that's where we create jobs. That's where our economy lies.
7 out of 10 jobs.
But let me say something that the media often focuses on conflict rather than vision. If people are being visionary, which is what I try to be, if people are looking to the future, if people are trying to deal with issues of terrorism, of guys getting on airplanes with bombs in their undies, that often doesn't get any coverage at all. But if a couple of candidates disagree on something, for example, I've been compared to Jimmy Carter, then that suddenly becomes, the big story. And when it came to me and Jimmy Carter, I'll tell you what, I was working hard to save the submarine base in Groton, New London. 31,000 jobs, $4 billion worth of revenue for the state of Connecticut. And Jimmy Carter wrote a letter to the BRAC Commission chairman a week before the vote, which said, even though he's from Georgia, said we need to keep the Connecticut base open, even though the submarines were coming to Kings Point, Georgia. He said that. I thought that was courageous. And the chairman, Tony Principi, the chairman of the BRAC Commission, said that letter convinced him to vote to keep the base open. So when that base was kept open on that close vote, 31,000 jobs, you know what I did? I wrote Jimmy Carter a thank you letter.
He gets an attaboy.
He got an attaboy. Does that mean that he's my mentor? No.
Well,
but I felt, under the circumstances, I would do it again. For 31,000 jobs, I'd do a 2-page letter. And, people have to understand that that's the way it plays out. And we have to be factual and honest in how we deal with these issues.
Well, that's just part of politics, stuff like that. We've seen it a million times. I remember your
But
race.
Is this what you were referring to?
That's some of it. Some of the nastiness. Maybe that stuff's going on there. On the other side, you might have attacks on Linda McMahon because of her wrestling business and saying, "Hey, well, you talking about health care? You didn't provide health care to your wrestlers, and many of them under the age of 44 are now dead under your watch. You made millions of dollars off of promoting sex and violence towards kids. How can you think you can be a Republican candidate?" So I mean, those things are fair game. But I'm just thinking that I'm just the overall tone.
Well,
and I think it's going to get nastier as we get towards primary day.
I appreciate that. I can assure you that my campaign has not put out literature like this, and we don't intend to. As long as possible, we would like to focus on the issues and work towards the convention.
One of the things that Scott Brown said that seemed to resonate quite a bit was, if I'm voted, we're not going to provide taxpayer money. We're going to use taxpayer money to buy weapons to fight terrorists. We're not going to use taxpayer money to
defend them.
To defend them. Caller, you there? Caller, you're on the air.
Health insurance. Are you aware of that?
Caller, you're on the air.
Alphonse. The wrestlers of the WWE are multimillionaires. They could afford their own health insurance. The employees, most of them that I know, have health insurance. How did you
No, they don't. No, they don't. Absolutely not. This is absolutely untrue. The employees of WWE, first of all, the wrestlers are independent contractors, which is why they don't have health insurance. That's how she gets around it. There's a lot more. I don't want to defend the WWE or jump on the WWE. That's
but
not what we're here.
It's a fair topic because when Linda McMahon goes to talk, she makes no bones about it that that's the business that she was in.
I think as Republicans who are mostly conservative, if you see the images from that particular organization a few years back, sex, violence which leads to kids doing backyard wrestling and harming themselves. I think those topics, I think that's actually fair game. And the only reason I brought that up was because, again, I just think the tone as we go further down the road closer to primary day is going to get uglier. And I'm just saying, again, I think that's going to turn off voters more than attract voters to one camp or the other.
As a U.S. Senator, would you be against having Sheikh Khalid Mohammed put on trial in Lower Manhattan?
Yes, and when I first heard about it, I came out that same day and said I object to that. Like many folks in Connecticut, I knew people who were killed that day. My daughter was in New York that day. She was out of touch. We didn't know where she was for most of the day, and yet her apartment was down at the World Trade Center area. She'd gone to work early. She never got back to her apartment. She had to go uptown to stay with my sister-in-law, and after 3 weeks got back into her apartment to get her things out and then moved to Brooklyn. So that was a very traumatic period. And this was a guy who admits that he planned it, that he planned killing 3,000 people. He's accepted the jurisdiction of a military court. He said that that would be fine with him. And I guess my question is, at a time when people are having trouble making ends meet, why does the taxpayer have to foot the bill for $500 million to give him a civilian trial?
Let alone the underpants bomber who was lawyered up and Mirandized. If people want to get in touch with you and continue the discussion, what's the best place to get in touch with you? And then
www.joinrobsimmons.com. www.joinrobsimmons.com.
Well, Congressman Simmons, thank you so much for coming in. I really appreciate it.
It was a pleasure.
Al, thanks for being here, too. And we're going to have a string of shows now. We're going to be in the studio for the next, as far as I can see, we're not going to be. So we're going to have more interesting conversations. It's more monologues. I'll try not to use up all the air in the room. Thanks for joining us on Ideas of Work and Beyond. And we'll see you here next week. Same bad time, same bad channel. I just dated myself, but those of you know what I'm talking about. See you next time. Thanks. That's right.